Hey friend, in this video I'm going to be showing you all the basic brush techniques you will need to use with painting watercolor. So we're going to be painting basic shapes like circles in a totem and also incorporating what I've shown you with wet and wet painting. So you can get used to a vertical hold with your brush and a slanted hold with your brush and how to get really crisp, smooth lines. So this is a part 1 to a two-part series of brush techniques. This is part 1 video. This is part 1 video. This is the first part of a 2-part series on brush techniques, so if you're ready to learn how to go from a vertical hold to a slanted hold, what those even mean, then this video is for you. Let's dive in. So with watercolor, there are 2 different holds that I'm going to call out, or handles. So you can have a vertical hold, which means that your brush is pointed more vertically up and down, and a slanted hold. A vertical hold can get you a wide stroke and a thin stroke, but with a round brush, this is the reason why I use round brushes. With a round brush, your brush is, a fine point. So if you wanted to get a really thin branch or outline of a shape like a circle, if you put little to no pressure on a vertical hold with your brush, you're going to get a really thin, crisp line. But if you do the same thing, vertical hold, and apply pressure, then the hair of the brush is going to spread out and you're going to fill in, let's say, a circle a lot quicker. And so we're going to practice painting circle totems, like just columns of circles, while we're also using wet and wet technique. So don't stress out too much. This is just to get you to focus on brush technique and going between a vertical hold and a slanted hold. Slanted holds, I use slanted holds most of the time to blend something in or to soften wet and wet blending, or to color something in quicker than just sitting there and coloring in the circle with the tip of my brush, because the slanted hold allows me to use the belly of the brush. Vertical hold, again, we're going to be using the tip of the brush. The stroke is going to look very different than if we use a slanted hold. The stroke is going to look very different too, depending on what you're painting. So let's say I'm just going to grab a little practice sheet here. This is going to be in a future video with compound strokes, but the way you hold the brush is also going to affect the way the stroke or the subject, whatever you're painting, the shape, looks. So if, let's say I'm painting a leaf, it's going to look a lot differently if I'm using a more vertical hold like this with the tip, and then I'm putting pressure on it like this, than if I'm using the belly of the leaf. So obviously I'm using the same pressure and technique. Belly of the brush. So obviously I'm using the same technique. I'm putting pressure on my brush and then releasing pressure. But one, I'm using the tip of the brush. The other one, I'm using the belly of the brush, pressure, release. And it looks more like a finger, or just as more of a sharp edge. So the way you hold your brush is going to be really important with the overall shape of whatever you're creating. So for this exercise, I'm just going to use my size 16 brush and my 16 round brush, and we're only going to be painting circles. I'm going to start with, a darker color. It can be anything that you want. It can be a lighter color too if you want, but I'm starting with Prussian blue and a lot of it on my brush. And to create a circle, a smooth edge circle, I'm going to use a vertical hold. So my brush is pretty much straight up and down. If you start to see a little droplet forming, make sure you dab your paper towel or swipe off that excess water so it doesn't create a big blob on your paper. So I'm going to use a vertical hold, and the way I'm holding the brush is whatever's comfortable to me, but I want to get kind of down on the ferrule or the handle of the brush pretty far, and I'm just going to use my fingers to swirl around the edge of this circle. And you can put pressure on this brush or no pressure, so you get like a really fine line, but the less pressure you put on the brush, the more wobbly it's going to look. So I'm putting pressure on it as I swirl it around this circle. And then I'm not going to sit there with a vertical hold and color it in. I'm going to use a slanted hold to quickly color it in, because we're painting wet and wet galaxies or totem, whatever you want to call this. And so my next circle, I am going to just use water. You can use turquoise, you can use pink, whatever you want to, but I'm just going to use water for mine. And I'm going to do the same thing, swirl around the outline of this circle and then color it in quickly first. But now I want to show how I would believe these two shapes are using wet and wet. So I'm going to swirl my brush, gradually increase the width or the circumference of this circle, swirling around, and then just barely swipe. And we get some magic. We're creating like snowmen. Next color, let's do a warm color. I'm going to use Opera Rose. You can stick with just cool colors. This is just practice, brush technique practice. So we're not really thinking about color theory and composition and where it's landing and all that kind of stuff. We're just practicing our brushes. Maybe I'm going to do a small pink circle here. Color it in with the belly of my brush with the slanted hold. And then gradually increase the size and touch. Clean it up. Maybe some orange for my next one. So practice bigger size circles and smaller size circles so you can really get used to how it feels. We're doing the same vertical hold to start and then slanted to color it in, unless it's like tiny, tiny circle, then there's no need. But practicing getting really, really smooth and smooth outlines of your circle, even because the smaller you get, the harder it's going to be. So just be really delicate and patient with it. If you have a really shaky hand, you can put your free hand down like a fist and stabilize your painting hand on top of it. That really helps. Just, lay off the coffee maybe while you're practicing your brush techniques. But this is a super, super simple painting, just circles, outline with the vertical hold, slanted hold to color it in. But it's so fun to look at, like just these lined up galaxies or circles. So these smaller ones, you can just color in with your vertical hold. If you want something to blend a little bit more, you just gotta scoop it in. Let's do a bright yellow next. And maybe back to some pink, some manganese blue for a bright purple pink. Yellow and purple are contrasting colors. We've got yellow, green, and pinkish purple. So we're not, still got some contrast, but not crazy. Fun stuff. We can come over here and create more totems, more practice. Outline with your vertical hold and swirl. Slanted hold to color in, and then just gradually get bigger. So it may seem redundant or boring, but this practice is very, very valuable in developing that muscle memory for painting anything, for painting flowers, for painting portraits, you name it. The stroke or brush technique is very, very important to practice. one more over here. Fun. It's like kind of like moon phases, but they're not moons. They're just colorful balls. So figure out what hold feels best for you. If you like, holding it further away from the tip of the brush, or if you like being really up close. When I'm swirling like this, I kind of like to get further away sometimes because it feels like I have better control. It's not as wobbly. But it may seem redundant and like we're just doing a bunch of circles over and over again, but it's actually getting you more and more comfortable with how to hold the brush and what types of holds, slanted or vertical, to use for certain areas, whether you're coloring something in or creating an outline. And different angles too are going to get you more or less coverage. And then also getting used to wet and wet painting just a little bit more too. You want to make sure you're focusing on painting relatively quickly if you're wanting to see these big bursts and blooms, because this is how wet and wet painting works. If one of your circles is too dry and you put a circle right next to it to bleed, it's not going to because it's dry. So you want to make sure that you're working kind of quickly. And that's what's also going to get you really comfortable with the brush too, if you're not overthinking things. And just kind of going for it and getting used to how the shapes form with the two different style holds. Like so. And then you have a really fun and colorful painting at the end of it. I hope you enjoyed this video. That was just one part of our complete beginner's guide to watercolor. So make sure you go check out that master video. It's got all the goods in it. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next tutorial.